welcome to another exciting episode of Strange Tales Weekly. I'm your host, Jess, and joining me tonight is my co-host, Eric.
Hey.
And Joe.
Hey.
And our special guest tonight is UFO Jane, host of the Weird UFO Show and the weirdufo.com. Can you correct me on that?
The weirdufoshow.com. And very, very good. I know the website's new, so good job.
So we just saw each other.
Yes.
At AlienCon.
It was a blast. It was so much fun. I want to go back, and I'm glad because there's another one coming up in Dallas.
And I think Strange Tales, we're trying to get out to Dallas, right, for that one?
I hope so. I really, really hope so. Come to my neck of the woods here in Texas. There's a lot of weirdos here. So I think.
So you're going?
Yes, I am. So, I mean, I don't have to hop on a plane this time around. So there's definitely no excuses. I had so much fun in California. So I'm excited. And this is the first time AlienCon has come to Texas.
Ooh, that's exciting for Texans.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. And I want to, represent fellow Texans there, fellow Texas believers. So it should be a lot of fun.
What was your favorite thing about AlienCon?
Everything. It's so hard. I know it sounds like a cop-out of an answer, but just the people, like, it was just so fun to talk to you. It was, and then just other fans. And then you could say Ancient Aliens stars if you like, but they really are just like you and me, fellow believers. And so it's fun to talk to people, like in between the panels and in the lines, and like when you're in the marketplace running into people maybe you've seen online or at past events. So for sure. What about you, Jess? What was your favorite?
I'd have to say the same because, I even found myself stuck in the marketplace talking to people, missing panels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did that too.
I made it to one panel and like a quarter of a Mike Barra panel.
Yeah, I felt pretty good. I hit up, there were some core panels I wanted to make sure to go to, including William Shatner. Had to cover the William Shatner panel for people online. So I was happy about that, but I wanted to go to so many more. And that's how I felt at past AlienCons as well. There's just not quite enough time.
I have a complaint. My complaint is that they book them at the exact same, like every hour. There could be 3 that you want to see, literally, and you can't.
Yeah. Yes, and they're in different areas, and to get like a reasonable spot, you'd have to show up way ahead of time to be in line, so you lose time in line as well in between. Yeah, it's quite a shuffle, but and I would agree with that too. I think if there was a way that we could see more panels during that weekend, that would be great. But I guess it's also a really good problem to have, that there is so many interesting topics. So I think my favorite panel actually was, well, there were a lot of really good ones, but the Antarctica one.
I wanted to that one. What was it?
Yeah, so it had, David Childress, who we all love. It also had Linda Moulton Howell and Nick Pope, Zachary Taylor, and I might have even been missing a person or two. And that was really interesting because they were talking about recent mainstream news, even just about expeditions to Antarctica and what might be below the surface that we didn't know about before, as well as military bases that are there that since have been disclosed to us. If you guys are familiar with Linda Moulton Howell, she has many military sources who have claimed to have seen UFOs and even aliens. And so she had some pretty extraordinary secondhand accounts of things seen in Antarctica. So that was a really, really fun one. And there was even some really good debate, as well. So yeah, that was probably my favorite, but they were all really good.
I went to Debunking Disclosure.
Ooh, I didn't go to that one.
I liked that one. That one was real good. It had Paul Hynek.
Okay, yeah.
Seth from SETI. I can't remember his last name.
That's just Zach.
The niece of Betty and Barney Hill.
Shoot, I didn't know that. I always love it when you can talk to somebody who's close, really close to these cases, not just a researcher.
Exactly, and hearing like her point of view on stuff and her approach to research is really interesting. So it was a great panel. Dolan was there, Steve Bassett.
Steve Bassett, I didn't catch him on any panel, but I think maybe you were even there. We got to talking to him, so I guess there was some drama between him and Seth Shostak on a panel, which is Seth Shostak, for those who don't know. So I don't know if he's the head of SETI, but he's one of the lead people at SETI. Is that fair to say? Yeah. And so he's often at these events speaking more from a skeptical point of view. And it's getting harder and harder to be skeptical about the existence of aliens with all this news coming out. So it's interesting, like what happens, if disclosure does really blatantly happen. What do we think of organizations like SETI? If the search, right? Yeah. So I was sad that I missed out on that interchange, because I bet that was pretty good. So
no, it was. I mean, there was a good exchange, and that was the panel that I went to. People, a man called Seth out pretty hardcore, said he was getting paid for nothing.
Yikes!
Ouch! Yeah, people were like, "Oh," and then the whole exchange with him and Bass. Yeah, so it was an action-packed one.
Yeah, I don't think I would go that far. I mean, I think, to be fair, there could and maybe is like a lot of different extraterrestrial life out there, and probably all the pursuits for it are worthwhile. But Seth has been that person that's been saying that we've not detected any actual evidence of alien life yet. Even at the last AlienCon, I know he was kind of poo-pooing literally the gas is coming from Mars as being a sign of ET life, and he was understating that a lot. So it'll be interesting to hear if he keeps talking like that at every event, or even if he keeps speaking at these events based on how this last one went. So
no, it would be interesting too to have him flip and actually say, like, yes, we do know that there's stuff out there, I feel like maybe he just doesn't want, I don't know, I can't speculate, so I'm not going to say.
Well, yeah, what does he really believe? Do any of us really know what any of the panelists, who've spoken at AlienCon really believe?
Oh,
so some people just seem so sincere, and I just take their word for it. But this is a weird industry. There are liars probably, or are for sure, in every industry, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Events you go to. And so this is for this topic, for somebody to be deceitful about it, it just kind of blows your mind on a different level.
That makes you wonder.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us more generally what the vibe was like there with the crowd, and just generally what it is for people who don't know.
Yeah, so I think it would be a really fun event to take if you're a believer and you have an open-minded like friend or family member. It'd probably be really fun to take them to it and experience it through their eyes, because it's kind of like if you are a believer and you're into UFOs and aliens or just paranormal consciousness type things, I guess it's like almost like going to a summer camp where you're just around a bunch of people who are into the same things as you and are having the same questions and are similar personalities, and so it's just a really fun like kinship. But then it's also incredibly enlightening. I mean, the panels are, though I'm a researcher and I'm documenting things every day and learning things every day, I still learn new things at these panels. Like the access that you get to, like Jess was saying, like actual, maybe Barney and Betty Hill's niece wasn't an actual abductee, but I mean, Travis Walton, he was there in the marketplace. You could just go talk to him. One of the most well-documented abductees of all time.
And you're like, and there he is. And that's kind of how it is.
Chill. And so that is exactly the vibe of AlienCon. You're just chilling with these cool people who are really down to earth, and then, but you could be talking to somebody who's on Ancient Aliens.
Yeah, exactly.
Or has maybe seen an alien. So it's just really neat. And the panels are, I mean, like the ones we mentioned probably give you a taste. They're fun, they're interesting. You don't know what can happen or what can be said. It's live and you have big personalities. I didn't see any of Jorge Sucalos's panels this year, but he usually has a big presence. So yeah, it's the whole gang's there. You got to be there. Yeah,
it's so fun. I recommend it too.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of things does somebody like William Shatner speak about?
Yeah, so William Shatner, what a fun panel that was. And he could have talked about anything. And we do have a few clips from it on the YouTube channel. So youtube.com/Texas UFO Sightings. Kind of a long, annoying URL, I know. But there are some clips you can see. And it's interesting because a lot of the time he would talk just about how likely alien life is out there. And he seemed to really understand a lot of the recent UFO evidence and be very, I would say, assertive that UFOs are real. But he's very much resistant to jumping onto the Ancient Aliens bandwagon. So that theory, or just taking all of this to the next level. So it's interesting. It's like this very reserved curiosity. And also he was just hilarious. And actually the person that was on the panel with him is Kevin Burns, who is the producer of Ancient Aliens. And so they were just talking almost like, over coffee, and at one point they were doing impressions of each other. So, I mean, it was really funny. And I love those moments when usually AlienCon will have like a big guest like that. Like they had David Duchovny last year, who will just kind of bring a different perspective to things and keep it fresh instead of the same old theories, I guess.
And so you got to meet Jeremy Corbell?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So Jess and I both got to talk to him. He was awesome. He has been making really big headlines, like history-making headlines lately.
Well, we saw him literally like 3 days after he was on Rogan.
Basically, as it was all happening.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I'm sure he was getting all kinds of just tweets and emails, but he was totally present at the event, and he spoke at panels. And then he had George Knapp, who was the original UFO beat reporter, really, in Vegas, who was, broke the Bob Lazar case and Skinwalker Ranch. And so George Knapp was there as well, with Corbell. But but what's interesting is, so he does the YouTube show with Joe Rogan, and he gets Bob Lazar to go on. I think, I don't know, it's probably at 3 million views on YouTube by the time AlienCon happened.
Oh, for sure.
I was watching it right when it came out because it's like, this was for anybody who's not seen Bob Lazar and Joe Rogan, finish this and then go watch that, because it's one of the most phenomenal interviews. I mean, whether you're a skeptic or not, it matters that this interview happened. And yeah, I think even if you go look at Bob Lazar's Wikipedia page, which I was doing recently for some reason, and even lists this Joe Rogan appearance like in the intro, because it was such a big deal. So going backward, Jeremy Corbell has a documentary on Netflix. Bob Lazar, it's like Area 51 and flying saucers.
Something, yes.
Yeah, so that's what he was talking about at AlienCon as well, and on Joe Rogan. So yeah, it's really cool to see this topic get, Joe Rogan's been interested in UFOs before, but he's back into it, essentially, is what's happened. So it's very mainstream.
That documentary is on Netflix now, so when you're done with this show and then you watch the Rogan show, go to Netflix and watch a documentary.
There you go.
Here's the rest of your night.
And it has spawned this meme, Storm Area 51. They can't stop all of us.
Oh my goodness.
What do you think about that?
it's really funny. Like I said, I have, I was talking to you guys earlier. I do have an article up on the website about it, and I just linked to some of the funny memes that cracked me up about it. And so on the surface, it's a funny joke. However, I think the amount of people going right now, I haven't checked today. It could be like 2 million by now. It's like over 1 million. So if you do some crunching of the numbers, you could have thousands of people showing up at this event. And there was a New York Times article that the reporter was doing some digging and talked to an innkeeper that's in that area. And she says that hotel rooms are getting booked. And
Shut
it's
up.
not even in like the right location, but it's like the location that was promoted on the Facebook page or whatever. So it is funny, but on the one hand, this is actually getting more attention because of how funny it is, right? If it wasn't so funny, maybe there'd be less likely that there'd be people actually showing up, because it's a super dangerous thing to do. I mean, you can go find YouTube videos of people driving up and then people in camo approach them. Somebody was killed last year trying to enter because it looked like they had a cylinder object, as they were approaching these guys in camo. So it's really dangerous. And so it's funny, but between now and September, that's still a lot of time for people to plan and organize and do this.
There's an article today, Storm Area 51 event will be live streamed on Facebook.
Well, I mean, people will do that today as is. People will go out there and try to see things and stalk the area and stuff. So it's not like it's impossible. I mean, a bunch of people can absolutely show up and do this together. And what's probably another darker side behind the memes is, how is this Facebook page? And don't get me wrong, I have suffered, experienced personally censorship and the struggle of that. And I'm so averted to that. However, how is this Facebook page allowed to exist? How are you allowed to create an event? I suppose maybe they're not actually technically condoning illegal action. I'm not sure.
If we were using Facebook to arrange an event to storm the White House, like,
right, yeah, how did this stay around to 1 million plus people going, and it's still in the news, and this Facebook page is still happening? So that's interesting to me. Is there some weird reason? I mean, you can kind of use your imagination of why you would be paying attention to this right now.
Yeah, I predict they'll probably come down on Facebook for allowing people to make events at because you can just make it at any location you want, really.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll probably, come down on them, make it have to be, approved or something by the location.
It's 2.8 million right now.
Wow. Yeah, and we're far from September.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is, it might die out by then. Nobody will care anymore by then.
Could take it down. If Facebook takes it down.
Yeah.
At any point before September. But it's interesting. It seems like Facebook has a lot of power when it wants to just take things down or that are deemed dangerous. And we hear a lot of the social media channels talk about how that's their number one reason when they do censorship. It's like for safety, or things. So that's kind of an interesting nugget, I guess, as it relates to just people in the media thinking about UFOs and aliens a lot as a result of this event. So,
well, it supports Facebook's bottom line right now, getting people on Facebook. So they might allow it to exist for a little while, get what they can out of it. Maybe they'll shut it down. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's to the point now where the government has made a statement about don't come here.
Yeah, a couple of them.
The Air Force did. Yeah, I think the Air Force said basically, we're ready. So we don't recommend you do that.
it says a lot about how people now can organize on the internet if they wanted to. Hopefully for something more productive, but
And the social experiment.
maybe it's a way to wipe out 1 million people at once.
Or 2.8 if they all showed up.
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine 100 people that somehow get together with like a live stream camera. You know, like that's just not a good situation.
Very curious to see how that turns out.
Well, and it's interesting too, because a lot of, let's say there are some people who are serious about this. Who is that person? Have they been into UFOs before? Because I think most people too in the UFO community have sort of understood by now that Area 51 is just one of many places where top secret activities have happened, and a lot of people in the community, at least as I understand it, don't necessarily think that anything's happening at Area 51 anymore. Or, you know, if it ever was happening at Area 51, it's no longer happening, or Area 51 was always kind of a smoke screen. So it doesn't, that's kind of the other, I guess, other ironic part about it, funny part about it, is what do you expect? What are you expecting to catch on camera? Just people in camo coming at you.
I think it's good to just bring attention to it, just in general. You know, that it exists, remind people that it exists, that it's super secret. We don't know what's going on there. Get people talking about it as much as possible is a good thing.
Well, and I think, I don't remember when Area 51 was finally disclosed to the public, but I mean, there was, when we were growing up, it was a true rumor, you know. Now it actually is technically declassified because of they just couldn't keep quiet about it. And so it's interesting.
I think Bob Lazar
about going there.
Bob Lazar came out about it, I think, in 1989. And I remember, I think, like Unsolved Mysteries did something about it shortly after that, and that's his history.
Yeah, and I think though it wasn't until like the 2000s though, until the government officially acknowledged, okay, yes, all that stuff about Area 51 was real. Yeah. So Bob Lazar, again, one of those early predictions that makes his testimony so intriguing.
Indeed. What other news items we have here? Got a triangle UFO over Corpus Christi.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's always, as far as just UFOs right now, I mean, I sound like a broken record any time somebody asks me, but yep, there's UFOs of all varieties, orbs, saucers, triangles happening. Triangle UFOs are definitely some of the more well-documented type of UFO that even a lot of skeptics who don't believe in aliens will still often acknowledge the triangle UFOs, and they'll just say they're military craft. But yeah, so we have another recent report from MUFON out of Texas. It's featured on TexasUFOsightings.com. And that was interesting because I don't have access to that witness. Unfortunately, I'm not a MUFON field investigator, but that witness did draw a really nice detailed photo, a picture, draw a photo. And it looked to them like the triangle UFO, this what you'd expect, dark V-shaped craft, looked like it almost had like a bite out of it, or some damage, or maybe it's by design. So it's maybe it was, in combat or something. So that was an interesting one. And then I featured another sighting recently that where I'm proposing the question, is this a drone or is this a UFO? And that question I've been proposing ever since documenting UFOs, but it's a question that is increasingly hard to answer. So it's interesting, like in the background of all this disclosure, UFO alien news, I feel like I'm seeing a downtick in some of the more sort of incredible, can't explain this sightings. And a lot of sightings with all the advanced drones and increased military craft, and even, the things that Elon Musk is doing, sending out there in space, is making it hard to distinguish, because our own craft are getting more advanced. So that's a weird kind of ongoing thing that I find myself increasingly having to deal with. Is this a drone or is this aliens visiting? So I have a case like that featured right now. So it's a little tricky. I mean, it's a lot tricky.
I saw some footage recently you posted about one that supposedly released by a Pentagon insider or something.
Fascinating. And that's a great video. And that, it's hard to say. Again, it's one of those odd leaked videos where, I was hoping to get more information from the community online, and I'm still looking out for it. Can't figure out if it's an actual Pentagon employee that leaked it, but that's the story. The footage seems authentic, but could it be real video released by the government? Possible. Could it be real video released by somebody who's not the government saying they're the government? It's a weird one. It definitely has that, don't want to sound too spooky, that kind of disinfo-y feel to it, where, you had these real Pentagon leaks happening that were sort of approved by the New York Times and President Trump and, all these other politicians. And then this came out sort of along the same time, but didn't have any of those official stamps of approval. But the video itself is really fascinating. I think people should check it out. I don't know technically when or where it occurred, though. So it's just the video itself is of an orb that it hovers still, and then it moves erratically, and it the way it takes off is totally bizarre. It can't even describe it. It just decides it doesn't want to be here anymore, and then just kind of zips off. So it couldn't be a plane. It couldn't be a satellite. It's definitely a hard one to explain. Whether it's an actual Pentagon leak remains to be seen.
Yeah, I brought it into Premiere Pro and just kind of brought the brightness all the way up and the contrast, and just played with effects to try to get it to stand out. And it looks like it's in the environment in the same way that the plane is. So that's kind of interesting.
Oh, it's interesting.
And I think, that's one way to tell if it's a drone or not, is just the speed that it covers in such a short time, or distance it covers.
Yeah, this was a great one because you had the frame of reference of a normal plane. So that was another thing that helps the video or makes it hard actually to explain. So it's always really nice when you can have some frame of reference, like another explainable craft or satellite or star. Because that's the problem with so many UFO videos, especially this one recently that I featured, which is questionable. That's all that you see is that one light in this big sky, and it just gives you no context. And I think people are often disappointed with UFO evidence, especially when they hear those exciting military testimonies from Linda Moulton Howe, and then it's just a picture of a dot, right? But if you think about it, if you go outside at night and it's just the most beautiful full moon, and you take, this lovely iPhone picture, it looks horrible. You can't even tell. It's the crappiest picture. So a lot of if an alien is visiting, I'm gonna be flying around at night. I'm not gonna be I'm not gonna be looking. I'm gonna be discreet. Maybe I'll even try to look like some other craft. Similarly, try to take a picture of a huge commercial airliner that absolutely is not trying to hide, at nighttime. And unless you're prepared, you're an actual, you've got your camera, your high quality camera equipment ready, it's not going to be a good photo. So I think people need to remember that when they're looking at sky pictures.
Just think of all the eclipse photos from last year.
Right. They're such a letdown. Yep. Yeah, at least mine were. I did see some cool ones online, but at least mine.
Well, yeah, that time we actually had the notice up front. We weren't sitting outside, and all of a sudden the sun disappeared.
Oh, then we would have thought it was magic.
Where did it happen just recently?
South America.
South America, yeah.
I watched it on Facebook.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. When's the next one? I'm excited. It was fun last time, but I do remember being super worried about my eyes, and also very excited to find out what UFOs were going to be seen. Because sure enough, when people just en masse go outside and they look at anything, they'll notice other stuff too. So I remember there were a lot of goofy orbs and stuff hanging around the moon that people got.
So, all this disclosure, what are politicians saying about it?
Yeah, well, they're saying stuff about it. So that alone is saying something, right? They shouldn't be talking about UFOs at all, unless they're joking on the talk shows. So up until, I'd say, pretty recently, that's the only way that politicians would talk about UFOs. It was a joke. However, we now have a senator in Virginia, President Trump, and then, popular people like Joe Rogan too, helping to keep this topic in the news. And so I think you've probably heard about President Trump's statements about UFOs. Some people were disappointed. The exact quote was kind of goofy, but it was like, I don't know if I believe in them or something.
It says, people are saying they're seeing UFOs. Do I believe it? Not particularly.
Not particular.
Then he went on. It was so weird though, because then he still went on to say that he I don't know if he said he trusted the pilot. But he was like, but but I know, but it's like, then he went to say, well, I don't think they're lying though. So it's like, it's weird, and it's interesting because, we do not need to bring politics into any of this. I try to stay completely neutral, but it is interesting because you have, within his own administration, I suppose, you have the Pentagon, actively leaking these UFO documents. And so the question is Trump part of that, like behind the scenes, or is he just kind of independently reacting like you and me? It's very strange. And then the original push for To the Stars Academy for a lot of this, that it actually started during the Hillary Clinton and President Trump campaign. And it was started by the DNC in a way. I don't know if started would be the word, but those early conversations with Tom DeLonge and making documentaries about UFOs and interviewing politicians, that's when this all started. So it's interesting. We're approaching another election that is going to be similarly heated and intense, like this other election. And UFOs were attempted to be a talking point in the last election. In my opinion, it didn't really succeed, the UFO talking point. Hillary Clinton spoke about it multiple times, and so did, I want to say, maybe even some other politicians running at the time. But I don't think it really took off. But I think this time around, politicians are already talking about it. It's hard to believe it could actually warrant a debate, a presidential debate question. So that's bizarre to think about.
Well, when we talk about what President Trump might know, there's an interesting quote in the Disclosure Project briefing document from Master Sergeant Dan Morris, U.S. Air Force, retired in 2000. He said that he once held a cosmic top secret clearance, which was 38 levels above top secret, and he doesn't think that any U.S. president has ever held.
I'm not sure if any of us could know if anybody's ever held that position. That's extraordinary.
Well, I mean,
how many levels above did you say?
It says 38 levels above top secret.
So to get to that level, there's got to be like somebody above you still, right?
You would think so, yeah.
How many levels are there?
I mean,
gosh.
This guy, I'm sure they vetted him as, Master Sergeant Dan Morris, U.S. Air Force.
It must get heavily compartmentalized once you get that high, like for there to be that many micro level.
yeah, definitely.
Well, I think I think 100% for sure it's compartmentalized. I don't think that's terribly debatable. So yeah, you just kind of have to let your imagination guess how compartmentalized it could be. I know, and this is pretty much declassified at this point, whether you believe people like Bob Lazar or not. A lot of what they describe about how, I guess you could say, disinformation or compartmentalization works has been proven. And so, or like a tactic that even Lazar referred to on the Joe Rogan interview was being given briefings by the government and knowing full well that there could be inaccurate information in those briefings. Because the idea is if you're then to go leak that information, it would be found out that you leaked it, because there's basically unique to you information in all the briefings, so that just nobody has the full story really ever. And Bob Lazar talked about, again, you have to take his story with a grain of salt, I suppose. But I think there's been a lot of documented disinformation as well. Well, beyond Lazar, everything from like Operation Mockingbird to Project Blue Book, on and on and on, that, that's all been declassified now. So we know within like Majestic and Project Blue Book, there were different groups that were essentially investigating UFOs. Aliens might be a stretch, but UFOs isn't.
No, for sure.
Unidentified flying objects.
I just found out that the disclosure briefing document is no longer available. I went to check it out, and I got this like privacy error that wasn't there before, and then it's missing. So that's kind of interesting.
John.
That was on seriousdisclosure.com. What do you think of Stephen Greer?
So Greer is, I think for most part, most voices in this world, I try to be open-minded about and trust are sincere, especially because I think like you could have an incorrect perspective and still be sincere, or even be given incorrect information or misinterpret evidence. Stephen Greer is one of those very, very sincere people. He's very believable. He's very persuasive. So no offense, Dr. Greer, right, doctor? I don't watch a lot of his stuff, documentaries, and
you haven't seen them?
So I've seen bits and pieces. I have intentionally not watched a lot of perspective documentaries. And read perspective books, and I've just chosen very much to spend as much time, every minute as I can, doing whatever raw research I can find, whether it's trying to look into Travis Walton's eyes in AlienCon to tell if he's telling the truth, or like reading through just boring documents. For sure. For things other people haven't. And that part of me is like, I'm trying to protect like my audience from, I want to do my best to give just the facts. And while I have theories and I share them, I try to resist, having a specific theory and listening to those who do. So I know that's probably not the best, maybe the most favorite answer. But you guys can convince me otherwise. There's some amazing books and movies and documentaries in this world. So for UFOs.
I don't know if Greer's are necessarily like a must watch. But it's interesting to see his perspective, And
I have gone down that rabbit hole, like with some Stephen Greer things, and then you can say David Wilcock's another one that it's just, he's fun to listen to, right?
I agree.
Yeah, just there's people that are fun to listen to, just interesting, and they have these parent sources, and but again, I try to resist too much of that, and stick to, okay, because also it's like this is an ongoing phenomenon that's happening right now. So I want to know like what's happening right now. Like what is Trump saying? what are people seeing? And that's time consuming.
It's active right now versus before because it's so mainstream, and it's like hard to like be like, oh my god, this is really like mainstream now.
It is. Yeah. And I think so one reason we got into this was because I actually knew that this was, I'm going to say I felt prophetic about it, but I mean, I think a lot of people in this community knew it was only going in one direction, and it was only going to keep becoming more popular and more talked about. And I felt this obligation, to learn everything I possibly could as early on as I could, knowing that it might not be as easy to research this stuff in the future in a way, oddly enough, when all these perspectives come out, right? Like when it becomes a mainstream news topic, it changes, right? The conversation changes. Your access to information about it changes. The people who monopolize that conversation change, and maybe now they're presidents or politicians talking about it. So I very much was like, I want to know what's going on, so that I can know for myself and for people who follow me online and for family and friends, and help share the truth.
I like how Greer focuses on what it means to have free energy technology, and he focuses a lot on the technology aspect of it, because if you researched like Victor Schauberger and everything that was going on in the 50s, they were working on flying saucers, and it makes mechanical sense, really, if you can get to the how they did it. It makes sense. So, and that would really change the world. I don't know how it would, though, for better or worse. It's hard to imagine.
Well, I mean, Nikola Tesla, who designed spacecrafts, and was famous or infamous depending on who you are, for his free energy device. And you can find pictures of him experimenting with ball lightning, and ball lightning is a very common not very common of the UFOs that you cannot explain that are UFOs. Ball lightning is technically explained is one of the good go-tos, and it's still something that I think it's fair to say scientists are learning about. There was a long period of time where ball lightning didn't exist, and it was just ending up in the UFO reports. So there's a lot of scientific phenomenon, maybe not necessarily aliens visiting, that I don't or just science, not phenomenon, just science, that maybe we aren't privy to because of this UFO category. So things like ball lightning, other examples of that I would include that I think are really interesting, and probably Greer is interested in, it would be volcano lights and earthquake lights. So those are, orbs of light. You can go actually find a volcano cam, and there's a pretty good chance that you'll see these lights. And there's the ash, from volcanic eruptions, and that can, have a glittery effect. But there's also these just lights that will hover over a volcano for long periods of time, go into the volcano. Sometimes they'll move. They seem almost intelligent sometimes, but I wouldn't go so far as to say that. I would suspect, there's a lot of energy in the volcano and a lot of like electricity almost. And similarly, there are lights that have been seen before earthquakes. And this is not a kooky alien thing. This is something that even geologists, acknowledged during the Japan. So what kind of energy, right? It's like creating these lights, that then we call UFOs, and we can't talk about it. So that's interesting. And in the Japan 2011 tsunami, horrible disaster, there were a lot of these lights seen. So, was it a natural scientific phenomenon that's related to this disaster? Could there be something even more going on? So yes, that's definitely related to the free energy discussion for sure, and could be a major reason that this is covered up.
Yeah, we just had Maury King on, and he's been researching 0-point energy for a few decades, and he talks about sprites which happen above lightning, and there's some kind of anomalous energy that happens in this situation. So that was pretty good talk. Interesting stuff. Way over my head, but somebody's got to get it.
Yeah, there's some really interesting UFOs and thunderstorms photos and videos. There's some of the more interesting ones I've seen, including in Texas. I think there's actually a video up somewhere on the channel, something like that. So yeah, those are, and again, when I see things like that, I don't tend to think the Roswell type alien and the flying saucer, but it's also related. So it's strange. I'm excited about disclosure. I think I'm always excited about the truth, no matter what. But the unfortunate part about that is then when it does become open like this, and it does become a political talking point or a hashtag, you'll notice like this kind of groupthink thing happens, and then we all start talking about it in the same way and thinking about it in the same way and fighting between each other for not thinking about it in the same way. And that's like stuff that didn't used to happen in this community. It used to be, maybe a little bit more edgier, but I don't remember there being infighting like it is today.
Not like now. No.
Yeah, it was more silly. It was like, that's a hoax, kind of like, and then the debate would drop. Like people would debate if something was a hoax or not. It wasn't like, these are more serious almost conversations that people are having now and getting upset about. So yeah, it's bittersweet, I guess.
I remember in the early days of the internet, I was like, oh man, this is awesome. This information's just going to get out there. It's going to be free. And almost the exact opposite happened.
Yeah.
Google now kind of controls information. So most people just Google something, and if it's not on the first page, that's pretty much where they end their search. So, that's a lot of power in the hands of Google, really.
Google's original plan is essentially like Alexa, which was you're going to ask a question, you won't get the answer. That was the original plan. And so then that plan didn't make sense. It's like, let's give as many results as possible. Now it's kind of going back like an accordion back to, we're going to give you the best answer possible, and then these paid answers. So yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people too who will like debunk UFOs will say, well, with the internet and all of this information and everything, wouldn't we all know by now? And it actually can be easier to be deceived and easier to be confused on the internet. I think that's what people take for granted. Propaganda is really powerful on the internet.
For sure.
And even the groupthink is worse because
exactly.
You don't want to even like comment something if it's not popular, and then people make fun of you or whatever. So yeah.
But that's why we're here, so we can help.
Yeah.
Just about the UFO topic, I feel like can help get the facts in order. About anything else, I'm not sure. It really is that confusing of a world and internet. So it's not just UFOs, it's every topic can get kind of confusing and convoluted when you really go down the internet rabbit hole. So
yeah, that's why I think it's good for us to like normalize it. Even what we're doing is just helping to normalize it. We're just here hanging out, and we're building community of people who usually only see each other online, but we have good conversations, and we just help the group mind expand, like the 100th monkey syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Just get it out there in the ether.
What do you guys think about the Project Blue Book TV show?
I have to make another confession, just like all you Stephen Greer fans and Project Blue Book fans. I haven't been watching, but I want to know. I want to know.
I haven't been watching.
I got 3 episodes in, and then I kind of fell off. I'm going to tell the truth. History Channel is not known for their dramatic shows. They're better at their documentary type shows.
No, see, I watched 3 episodes of it, and I didn't fall off because of not liking it. I actually liked it quite a bit. It was a cool period piece, and it's kind of got that X-Files vibe. But I just don't have a cable package, and they gave me 3 free episodes.
If I could give you my episodes, Eric, I could like OBS them and then like send them over to you because I own the whole season, but I'm not gonna send them over to you to finish it.
I'd like to sit and watch the rest of it. I also just get very busy, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a big part of it too. Is I'm just busy, and I have a kiddo, so it's all kid friendly stuff, you know, all the time, nonstop.
I don't know about you guys, but when you're like a researcher and do all the stuff we do, it's like really hard to stay focused on something because you're always thinking about the other stuff you want to research and like ideas coming up. I just can't pay attention to stuff. Really.
Well, I have trouble with watching Project Blue Book or things like that. Is I'll get anxious about it because I will start thinking about all the real stuff, and then I'll start thinking, oh, what what perspectives are people at home going to develop from watching this? Because even when there's like light sort of UFO related things in like Hollywood movies or whatever, or if we're going to see like Avengers and they've got like a triangle ship, like I'll start thinking about the real stuff behind it. So it gets very real when you're researching.
There's like a spy that's like befriending Hynek's wife during it, and they started bringing in like some dark characters and stuff, and so it was getting very fictionalized quick.
I think that's where I fell off, Eric, where there was that like some weird side relationship with the wife, and I was like, what's going on? Where's the aliens? Why are they shopping?
Yeah, I was getting it because they kind of need that, I think, to be that kind of show, but I get what you're saying.
That's where I fell off. I was like, I'm not interested in this show if they're going to do this. Sorry.
Totally. No, this is totally random. I mean, it's somewhat related. Did you guys ever get into Twin Peaks?
A little bit. That's a good show. It's very trippy. I watched.
It's got like that soap opera. It's got all the soap opera stuff, but then it's just trippy. Yeah. Trippy.
Did you watch the old one? I never watched the old one, really.
Yeah. Oh well, so man, that's the best one, Joe.
Okay.
Oh my god, it's so much like.
Yeah, you're supposed to you have to watch the old weird one, Joe.
Yeah. Okay.
Feels more like you're like in this pleasant mountain town. So, and you have all the small town like drama, soap opera. There's like humor, like coffee cafe humor, but then you have all the stuff you saw in the recent one, like underlying it. So I'd recommend that one. But that's got me thinking of the drama in Project Blue Book. So maybe if it had like a Twin Peaks vibe, I'd be into it. It's gonna be fresh and pure, and all the UFO alien perspectives and movie plot lines will not affect my my judgment.
So you didn't watch Unidentified either?
I've seen like a bazillion gajillion clips, and it's like I kind of know I'm unidentified. Like that's my life, is unidentified, is all of that evidence. What I've seen, I like, though. I mean, it's like you guys were saying. I think History Channel does that kind of stuff just remarkably well.
I agree. I agree.
And I'm glad it's happening. I'm glad this information's coming out and people are actually interested in it instead of just laughing about it, like maybe just only so many years ago.
Yeah, right?
Pretty phenomenal. Yeah.
Actually, true. That's so true.
Got any events coming up? Going anywhere cool?
So, yep. So, I mean, AlienCon in Dallas, but looking at what maybe we could do in Texas before then. So stay tuned. Definitely want to make our way around, this whole country, and always putting stuff on the YouTube. We have this new website, weirdufoshow.com. So trying to get that going and more episodes to come and interviews, just like you guys, just reporting and researching. So
exactly.
Awesome. Did Glurp have a good time at AlienCon?
He did. He's gonna have to spend more time at AlienCon Dallas because he was a hit. Everybody wanted to take a picture. And if you are there in Dallas, Glurp will be there. So keep an eye out. You can get a picture with him. So yeah, so he's always a hit. So that's fun.
Awesome. I hope to meet him someday.
Yeah, well, hopefully you will. I mean, we're gonna keep going to events, and Joe, maybe you can make it out to Dallas. That would be awesome. So
That would. Yeah. Did we apply for a press pass?
I think we did.
Yeah. Okay.
But side note, thank you, Jane, for telling me that. I mean, we're gonna have to cut this out, sorry, but because I was able to get into MUFON Symposium by getting a media pass.
You can't lose. Like, who? The worst case scenario is they don't reply or they say no. So, like, if you might as well, yeah, and you deserve to. I mean, you guys are. So, yeah. So that's fun. That's cool too.
Yeah, so no, I have that next week, so that's gonna be really fun.
Yeah. I need to get something on the calendar for sure. I'm itching. Just got to get unbusy. Just always so busy.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with us tonight.
Of course, it was so much fun. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, this is great.
Thank you so much. So thank you for joining us on Strange Tales Weekly. Catch UFO Jane on the Weird UFO Show. Stay strange.
Peace.